Greetings, cozy knights. Lower your swords and rest by the fire. Tonight, we journey through the arcane secrets and mystical wonders of Elden Ring's lands between. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're listening from tonight. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure. Night Comet's invisible advantage. Night Comet stands as one of the most fascinating sorceries in Elden Ring, for a reason that goes beyond its damage output. This spell belongs to the Night Sorcery category, and it possesses a unique property that fundamentally changes how enemies interact with it. When you cast Night Comet, the projectile becomes completely invisible to enemy artificial intelligence. Bosses like Millennia, who normally dodge and weave around traditional spells with frightening efficiency, simply stand there and take the hit. They cannot see it coming, cannot register its approach, and therefore never attempt to block or avoid it. This invisibility only applies to computer-controlled enemies though. In player versus player combat, your opponent can still see the glowing projectile sailing toward them and dodge accordingly. The spell's effectiveness against notoriously agile bosses like the Tree Sentinels makes it an invaluable tool for intelligence builds struggling with highly mobile opponents. You can find this remarkable sorcery in a chest located in the center of Celia, town of sorcery in Caelid. But first, you must light the fires in each of the town's towers to break the magical barriers protecting it. The Glintstone Pebble Paradox. Glintstone Pebble represents one of Elden Ring's most counterintuitive truths about magical power. This basic starter-level sorcery that astrologers begin the game with somehow manages to outperform spells that require significantly higher intelligence investments and consume far more focus points. The damage to FP cost ratio of Glintstone Pebble remains unmatched throughout the entire game, making it more efficient than supposedly superior spells like Great Glintstone Shard or Glintstone Comet Shard. At high intelligence levels with proper staff scaling, this humble pebble can deal 400 damage per cast in player versus player combat while consuming minimal resources. Players who chase after legendary sorceries and complex spell combinations often circle back to this fundamental incantation, realizing that sometimes the simplest solution truly is the best. The spell can be cast repeatedly and while in motion, offering flexibility that many advanced sorceries lack. You can purchase it from Sorceress Sellen at the Waypoint Ruins for a mere 1,000 runes, making it accessible from the earliest stages of your journey. The fact that speedrunners and endgame mages alike rely on this basic spell speaks volumes about how From Software balanced magical combat in the lands between. Terra Magica's geometric power. Terra Magica creates a circular sigil on the ground that boosts all sorcery damage by 22.5% for anyone standing within its boundaries. This unique spell transforms static positioning into devastating offensive potential, though it comes with significant tactical limitations. The area covered by Terra Magica is surprisingly small, forcing you to remain in a confined space to benefit from its power. Standing still in Elden Ring generally ranks among the worst tactical decisions you can make, as mobility often means the difference between life and death. However, certain boss encounters and situations allow you to establish this magical zone and then unleash enhanced spells from relative safety. The damage boost stacks with other enhancement effects like the Magic Scorpion Charm and the Magic Shrouding Crack Tear, allowing dedicated mages to push their damage output to extraordinary heights. Interestingly, the spell checks your position only when the projectile actually fires, not when you begin casting. This means you can start channeling a spell outside the circle, step inside Terra Magica before it fires, and still receive the full damage bonus. The reverse also holds true. If you cast inside the circle but step outside before the spell completes, you lose the enhancement. You can find Terra Magica at the top of a tower in the Academy Crystal Cave, accessed via an elevator that appears after you defeat the dungeon's boss. Carrion Slicer's melee magic. Carrion Slicer breaks the traditional paradigm of what sorcery means in Elden Ring. Instead of launching projectiles from safe distances, this spell conjures a blade of magical energy that slashes enemies in close quarters combat. What makes Carrion Slicer truly remarkable is its absurdly low focus point cost, combined with fast casting speed and respectable damage output. At only 4 FP per cast, you can swing this magical sword dozens of times before depleting your blue bar. The spell operates essentially as a fast melee weapon that scales with intelligence and your staff's magical scaling rather than strength or dexterity. This allows pure mages to engage in aggressive close-range combat without needing to invest points in physical damage stats. The casting animation completes quickly enough that you can weave Carrion Slicer strikes between enemy attacks, creating a rhythm similar to wielding an actual blade. When combined with the Carrion Glintstone Staff, which specifically boosts Carrion sorceries, this humble spell can shred through enemies and bosses alike with surprising efficiency. Many players overlook Carrion Slicer in favor of flashier long-range spells, only to discover later that it outperforms more expensive options in numerous situations. You can purchase this sorcery from Sorceress Sellen for 1,500 runes, making it an early game acquisition that remains relevant throughout your entire playthrough. Comet Azur's Kamehameha. Comet Azur stands as perhaps the most visually spectacular and meme-worthy sorcery in all of Elden Ring. When cast, this legendary spell fires a continuous beam of destructive cosmic energy that looks like it was ripped straight from an anime battle sequence. The spell consumes focus points continuously while you hold the casting button, creating a sustained laser that can melt bosses in seconds given the right setup. The most famous Comet Azur strategy involves combining it with the Cerulean Hidden Tear in your Wondrous Physic, which eliminates all FP consumption for 10 seconds, and Terra Magica for the damage boost. This combination allows you to channel the full fury of the cosmos for the duration of the buff, often deleting entire health bars before enemies can react. The spell requires you to obtain it from primeval sorcerer Azur himself, who sits near the cliffs northeast of Hermit Village in Mount Gelmir. You must reach 60 intelligence to cast it, and it occupies 3 memory slots, reflecting its legendary status. Interestingly, Comet Azur can be interrupted by enemy attacks, making positioning and timing crucial for pulling off the devastating sustained beam. The spell's name and function pay homage to its creator, Azur, one of the 2 founders of the primeval current school of magic, who sought to understand the fundamental forces of the cosmos itself. Stars of Ruin's relentless pursuit. Stars of Ruin represents the ultimate homing spell in Elden Ring's arsenal, firing a barrage of magical stars that track their target with almost unavoidable precision. Unlike standard projectiles that can be dodged with proper timing, Stars of Ruin's projectiles adjust their trajectory mid-flight, curving through the air to find their mark. This makes it exceptionally powerful against mobile enemies and bosses with confusing movement patterns. You simply aim in the general direction of your target, cast the spell, and watch as the swarm of stars chases them down. The spell was significantly adjusted in patches, with its FP cost reduced from 38 to 32 and stamina consumption lowered from 33 to 29, making it more spammable than ever. In player versus player combat, Stars of Ruin becomes a nightmare to face, as the tracking makes it incredibly difficult to avoid all the projectiles even with perfectly timed rolls. To obtain this powerful sorcery, you must first acquire Comet Azure from Sorcerer Azure, show it to Sorceress Selen to progress her questline, and receive the Celian Sealbreaker. Then you must travel to Celia Hideaway, south of Dragonbarrow, find the secret room protected by a magic ward, and receive the spell from Master Lusat himself. The intelligence requirement of 60 and the 3 memory slots it occupies mark it as one of the game's ultimate magical achievements. Rani's Dark Moon Frostbite. Rani's Dark Moon serves as one of only 2 full moon sorceries in Elden Ring, and it comes with unique properties that extend beyond its massive damage potential. When this spell strikes an enemy, it inflicts significant cold buildup that can trigger the frostbite status effect, and more importantly, it reduces the target's magic damage resistance. This debuff makes all subsequent magical attacks more effective, essentially allowing Rani's Dark Moon to amplify its own damage on repeat casts. With proper magical damage boosting equipment, including the Carian Regal Scepter Staff, Magic Scorpion Charm, Graven Mass Talisman, and Terra Magica, this spell can deal upwards of 1500 damage per cast. The massive intelligence requirement of 70 and FP cost of 55 make it truly an endgame sorcery, but the payoff reflects the investment. You can only obtain Rani's Dark Moon by completing her extensive quest line, which involves defeating Radan to access Nokron, retrieving the Fingerslayer blade, giving it to Rani, finding the curse mark of death, defeating Estelle in the Lake of Rot, and finally accessing the Moonlight Altar area where Rani leaves this spell as a parting gift. The spell represents Rani's personal magical philosophy, drawing power from the dark moon that contrasts with her mother Renala's full moon, symbolizing her rejection of the Golden Order and embrace of a colder, more distant divinity. Magic Glintblade's Delayed Detonation. Glintblade introduces a timing mechanic rarely seen in From Software's magic systems. When you cast this sorcery, the conjured blade floats above your head for a moment before launching toward your target, creating a delayed attack that catches enemies off guard. You can charge the spell to extend this delay even further, allowing for tactical timing plays. The genius of Magic Glintblade lies in how it breaks enemy prediction patterns. Most foes in Elden Ring learn to dodge when they see you complete a casting animation, but Magic Glintblade's delay means they often dodge too early and get hit anyway. You can cast multiple Magic Glintblades in succession, creating a chain of delayed projectiles that fire at staggered intervals, overwhelming enemy defenses. When charged fully and cast with the Carian Glintblade staff, the damage output actually exceeds that of Great Glintstone Shard, despite the lower base damage, making it both more tactical and more powerful in the right hands. Advanced players learn to cast one charge Magic Glintblade, wait a moment, then cast an uncharged version, causing both to fire simultaneously for a devastating double impact. The spell works particularly well for hybrid builds that want to open engagements with magic before closing to melee range, as you can send blades toward enemies while charging in with your weapon. Relina's Twin Moon Spectacle. Relina's Twin Moons represents one of the most visually stunning spells added in Shadow of the Erdtree, and it packs tremendous damage to match its beauty. This sorcery fires 2 massive moon, projectiles that deal devastating damage to anything caught in their path. However, The spell suffers from an exceptionally long casting time that makes it difficult to use against the agile bosses that populate the DLC content. Against slower enemies or foes you can catch unaware, Relena's Twin Moons becomes one of the highest damage spells available to intelligence builds. The spell requires you to defeat Relena, the Twin Moon Knight, one of the major bosses in Shadow of the Erd Tree, and then exchange her remembrance at the Round Table Hole to learn it. The high intelligence requirement and long casting animation mean you need to pick your moments carefully, making this more of a situational powerhouse than a general use spell. When you do manage to land it, the twin moons exploding against your target provides one of the most satisfying visual and auditory experiences in Elden Ring's magical combat. Glintstone Icecrag's Frostbite Builder. Glintstone Icecrag occupies a unique position as one of the few sorceries that inflicts a status effect rather than pure damage. Each cast builds up cold on your target, and once enough build-up accumulates, the Frostbite status triggers, dealing burst damage and increasing all damage the afflicted enemy takes from any source. The recent patch increased the Frostbite build-up from 80 to 100 per cast, making it faster than ever to trigger the status. This creates a powerful opening strategy. Hit an enemy with a few Glintstone Icecrags to proc Frostbite, then switch to your highest damage spells to capitalize on the increased damage window. The spell combines offense with debuff application, making it valuable even for builds that primarily rely on other damage sources. You can purchase Glintstone Icecrag from Sorceress Sellen, or find it as a drop from certain enemies in Leonia, making it accessible early enough to build strategies around it. Rock Sling's physical damage. Surprise! Rock Sling breaks one of the fundamental rules players expect from intelligence scaling spells. It deals physical damage instead of magical damage. This sorcery summons 3 chunks of rock from the ground and hurls them at enemies with surprising force and excellent tracking. The physical damage type means Rock Sling bypasses magical resistances entirely, making it effective against enemies and bosses that would normally shrug off glintstone projectiles. Many enemies in Elden Ring have high magic resistance but comparatively weak physical defenses, turning Rock Sling into the perfect counter. The spell also deals massive poise damage, staggering enemies much more effectively than typical sorceries. You can repeatedly break enemy posture with Rock Sling, opening them up for critical hits. The spell scales with intelligence despite dealing physical damage, allowing pure mage builds to access reliable physical damage without investing in strength or dexterity. You can find Rock Sling in the Street of Sages ruins in Caelid by opening a chest in a destroyed building's underground section, though reaching it requires navigating through some particularly nasty Caelid residents. Loretta's Greatbow Sniper. Loretta's Greatbow transforms your mage into a long-range sniper, firing magical arrows across distances that most spells cannot reach. This charged sorcery allows you to eliminate enemies from safety, picking off threats before they even know you exist. The spell's range exceeds nearly every other sorcery in the game, making it perfect for clearing out archers, mages, and other ranged enemies that plague areas from afar. You can charge Loretta's Greatbow to increase both its damage and range, though this extends the casting time considerably. The spell requires decent intelligence at 26 and costs 18 FP per cast, but the tactical advantage of extreme range often justifies the cost. You obtain this sorcery by defeating Royal Knight Loretta, the boss guarding access to the Carian Manor's upper sections, making it a mid-game acquisition that opens new tactical possibilities. The Greatbow's name references Loretta's role as protector of the Halleck Tree. where she eventually relocates and can be encountered again in her more powerful Haligtree Knight form. Adula's Moonblade Frost Sweep. Adula's Moonblade conjures a massive magical greatsword that slashes in a wide arc, dealing both direct damage and heavy cold buildup. This spell excels at controlling space in close to medium range, and its sweeping attack can hit multiple enemies caught in the blade's path. The spell inflicts substantial frostbite buildup, often triggering the status effect in just 1 or 2 casts against most enemies. When fully charged, the Moonblade grows even larger and deals increased damage. Though the extended casting time makes you vulnerable, you acquire this sorcery by defeating Glintstone Dragon Adula, a powerful optional boss you can encounter multiple times throughout the game. First at the Three Sisters area, and later at the Cathedral of Manasseles. The spell requires 62 intelligence and costs 26 FP, marking it as a late-game option for dedicated mage builds. Adula's Moonblade works particularly well for battle mage builds that want powerful close-range magical options without relying on pure melee weapons. Founding Rain of Stars Ambush. Founding Rain of Stars creates a delayed magic attack that rains down glintstone projectiles from above, hitting an area rather than a single target. This spell functions as a magical ambush, perfect for situations where you know enemies will pass through a specific location. You cast the spell, retreat to safety, and watch as foes walk into a storm of falling stars. The spell requires high intelligence at 52 and costs 39 FP, reflecting its potent area denial capabilities. To obtain Founding Rain of Stars, you must navigate an invisible bridge to reach Heretical Rise in the mountaintops of the Giants, a challenge that requires careful observation and precise movement. The spell's area effect and delayed detonation make it less useful in direct combat, but invaluable for ambushing groups or controlling choke points. Crystal Barrage's Sustained Assault. Crystal Barrage fires a continuous stream of magical crystals at your target, dealing sustained damage as long as you hold the casting button. This creates a different rhythm from single cast spells, allowing you to adjust your damage output based on how long you channel. Against stationary targets or stunned enemies, you can pour out tremendous damage by holding the channel for its full duration. The spell roots you in place while casting, making positioning crucial for effective use. Crystal Barrage becomes particularly effective in the late game, when your intelligence reaches levels where its sustained damage output exceeds the efficiency of repeatedly casting single projectiles. You can purchase this sorcery from Sorceress Selen right from the start of the game for 1,200 runes, making it an early acquisition that grows increasingly powerful as you level intelligence. Great Blade Phalanx Automatic Defense. Great Blade Phalanx conjures 5 large magical swords that float around you, automatically launching at enemies who approach too close. This creates passive offense, allowing you to focus on dodging and positioning while the blades handle counterattacks. Each blade deals respectable damage, and the spell costs relatively little FP considering it provides multiple attacks. You can combine Great Blade Phalanx with aggressive melee tactics, using the automatic blade launches to punish enemies who try to interrupt your sword swings. The spell requires less intelligence than some alternatives at 29 and costs 25 FP, making it accessible for hybrid builds. You can find this sorcery in a chest on the Moonlight Altar area, accessible only after completing significant portions of Ranni's questline. Meteorite of Astal Cosmic Bombardment. Meteorite of Astal summons a meteor shower that rains destruction upon a targeted area, dealing massive damage to anything caught in the barrage. This spell requires 55 intelligence and costs 55 FP, but the damage output can justify the cost against groups of enemies or large bosses. The spell's area of effect makes it effective for crowd control, though the long casting animation leaves you vulnerable. You obtain Meteorite of Astal by defeating Astal, natural born of the Void in the Grand Cloister at the end of the Lake of Rot, one of the game's most challenging areas to reach. The cosmic nature of the spell reflects Astal's origin as a being from beyond the stars, capable of manipulating gravitational and spatial forces. Shard Spiral's piercing spin. Shard Spiral fires a spinning projectile of crystal shards that can hit enemies multiple times as it travels, dealing its damage over several impacts rather than a single strike. Against large enemies or bosses, the spiral can connect with multiple hits, multiplying the damage significantly. The spell excels against stationary targets or slow-moving bosses, where the spiral has time to land numerous hits. You need 33 intelligence to cast it, and it costs 12 FP, making it relatively accessible. You can find Shard Spiral in a chest in the sealed tunnel in the Altus Plateau, though reaching it requires navigating through an area filled with miners and crystallians. Crystal Torrent's Sweeping Beam. Crystal Torrent releases a horizontal sweeping beam of crystalline energy that can hit multiple enemies standing in a line. This spell costs only 20 FP, but requires 34 intelligence, offering good value for clearing groups. The sweeping motion gives it better coverage than simple projectile spells, making it effective in areas where enemies cluster together. You can purchase Crystal Torrent from Seluvis after gaining access to his services through Ranni's questline, though his generally unpleasant personality makes the transaction memorable for all the wrong reasons. Zamor Ice Storm's Lingering Cold. Zamor Ice Storm creates a field of freezing energy that lingers on the battlefield, continuously damaging and building up frostbite on any enemies who remain inside it. This area control spell forces enemies to either flee the zone or suffer accumulating damage and status buildup. The spell requires 47 intelligence and costs 36 FP, but against enemies who cannot easily escape the storm's area, it delivers exceptional value. You obtain this sorcery from the corpse of a Zamor warrior in the giant conquering hero's grave, a challenging late-game dungeon filled with deadly chariots and tough enemies. Eternal Darkness. Spell Absorption. Eternal Darkness creates a void that actually absorbs incoming spells, making it one of the only defensive sorceries in Elden Ring. When you cast it, a sphere of darkness appears that negates enemy magic that passes through it. This transforms certain boss fights and PvP encounters, allowing you to nullify magical attacks that would otherwise deal significant damage. The spell requires 35 intelligence and costs 35 FP, and it occupies 2 memory slots, reflecting its unique defensive utility. You can find Eternal Darkness in Celia Hideaway by defeating the putrid Crystalline Trio, a challenging fight that guards this rare defensive option. Collapsing Star's Gravity Pull. Collapsing Stars draws enemies toward you using gravitational force, pulling them from range into melee distance. This opens up tactical possibilities for hybrid builds that want to close gaps quickly or group enemies together. The gravitational pull works on most standard enemies and even affects some bosses to a degree, though the heaviest foes resist it. The spell requires 36 intelligence and costs 28 FP, positioning it as a mid-game tactical tool. You can purchase Collapsing Stars from Master Lusat after progressing Selen's questline far enough to access his location. Gravity Well's Crushing Force. Gravity Well creates a powerful gravitational field at a targeted location that pulls enemies toward the center before crushing them with intense force. This spell combines crowd control with damage, making it effective against groups. The gravitational pull groups enemies together. Then the crushing force damages all of them simultaneously. You need 36 intelligence to cast it, and it costs 22 FP. You can find Gravity Well in the Academy of Raya Lucaria by looting a corpse in one of the Academy's side rooms. Meteorite Gravity Impact. Meteorite calls down a chunk of space rock that impacts with devastating force, dealing both direct damage and heavy poise damage that can stagger even large enemies. The spell's high poise damage makes it valuable for breaking enemy posture and creating critical hit opportunities. It requires 33 intelligence and costs 18 FP, offering good value considering its impact. You can purchase Meteorite from Sorceress Selen once you provide her with certain sorcery scrolls found throughout Liurnia. Star Shower Tracking Storm. Star Shower fires a spread of homing magical stars that track individual targets, making it effective against fast-moving enemies or groups spread across an area. Each star seeks its own target, creating a storm of magical projectiles that pursue foes with relentless determination. The spell underwent significant buffs that improved its reliability, pushing it into the spotlight as Stars of Ruin received nerfs. You can purchase Star Shower after delivering the Conspector Scroll to any sorcery trainer, making it accessible in the mid-game once you explore Raya Lucaria Academy. Glintstone Comet Shard Balance. Glintstone Comet Shard strikes a middle ground between the basic Glintstone Pebble and the more expensive Comet, offering reasonable damage at moderate FP cost. This balance makes it a reliable workhorse for mages who want more impact than the Pebble without the resource drain of full Comet. At 19 intelligence requirement and 11 FP cost, it occupies a sweet spot for mid-game progression. You can purchase Glintstone Comet Shard after delivering the Conspector Scroll to a sorcery trainer. Great Glintstone Shard Power. Great Glintstone Shard fires a large crystalline projectile that deals solid damage with good range. Despite its name suggesting a direct upgrade to basic Glintstone projectiles, the damage to FP ratio doesn't quite match Glintstone Pebble's efficiency. However, it does offer a noticeable damage increase that can be worthwhile when FP conservation matters less than immediate impact. The spell requires 16 intelligence and costs 16 FP. You can purchase it from Sorceress Selen or other sorcery trainers after meeting the intelligence requirement. Swift Glintstone Shard. Speed. Swift Glintstone Shard prioritizes casting speed over damage, allowing you to fire magical projectiles faster than most other offensive sorceries. The reduced cast time makes it valuable for maintaining pressure on enemies or getting off casts between enemy attacks. At 12 intelligence and 5 FP cost, it's accessible early and efficient enough for regular use. You can obtain it by delivering the Academy Scroll to any sorcery trainer, which can be found in a graveyard west of the lake-facing cliff site of Grace. Glintstone Arc Coverage. Glintstone Arc fires a horizontal wave of magical energy that can hit multiple enemies standing in its path. This makes it the spell of choice for dealing with groups, as a single cast can damage several foes simultaneously. The spell consumes 12 FP and requires 13 intelligence, making it an early game acquisition that remains useful for crowd control throughout your playthrough. Astrologers start with this spell, highlighting its utility for casters from the very beginning. Carrion Greatsword Massive Swing. Carrion Greatsword conjures an enormous magical blade and swings it in a devastating arc, dealing tremendous damage and poise damage to anything in the swing's path. This spell functions essentially as a slow, powerful melee attack that scales with intelligence. The massive poise damage can break enemy posture in just a few hits, creating critical opportunities. At 24 intelligence and 27 FP cost, it serves as the heavier alternative to Carrion Slicer's fast strikes. You can find Carrion Greatsword in a chest in the Carrion Study Hall, accessible through the connected regions of Liurnia. Carrion Piercer Thrust. Carrion Piercer creates a magical sword that performs a powerful thrusting attack, functioning like a heavy weapon thrust that scales with intelligence. The thrust covers good distance and can hit enemies from farther away than standard melee attacks. At 27 intelligence and 9 FP, it offers another tactical option for battle mages who want to mix magical melee with traditional sorceries. You can purchase Carrion Piercer from Preceptor Seluvis at his rise once you gain access through Ranni's questline. Shattering Crystal Area Damage. Shattering Crystal creates a burst of crystalline energy around you, damaging nearby enemies in a small radius. This defensive spell helps when enemies close to melee range, giving you a way to create space. The spell requires 38 intelligence and costs 21 FP, making it a later acquisition. You can find Shattering Crystal in the Raya Lucaria Academy by looting a corpse in one of the crystal-filled side chambers. Crystal Release. Follow-up. Crystal Release functions as a follow-up to Shattering Crystal, creating an extended burst that deals additional damage after the initial explosion. This two-stage spell provides more total damage than Shattering Crystal alone, though the extended animation leaves you vulnerable for longer. At 46 intelligence and 38 FP, it represents a significant investment. You can purchase Crystal Release from Seluvis after gaining access to his services. Oracle Bubbles. Floating projectiles. Oracle Baubles fires several floating magical baubles that drift toward enemies before bursting, each dealing damage on contact. The spell's unique travel pattern makes it effective in certain situations where standard projectiles would be dodged. At 28 intelligence and 24 FP, it occupies a mid-game position. You obtain Oracle Bubbles by defeating the Spirit Caller Cave boss and receiving it as a reward. Great Oracular Bubble Giant Burst. Great Oracular Bubble fires a single large bubble that floats toward enemies before exploding with significant force. The larger size and increased damage make it more useful than the multi-bubble version against single targets. At 35 intelligence and 28 FP, it requires more investment, but delivers better results against bosses. You can find Great Oracular Bubble in Liurnia by thoroughly exploring the lake regions. Lucidity Mental Clarity. Lucidity stands as one of the only utility sorceries that doesn't deal damage, instead cleansing the madness status effect and boosting your focus. This becomes invaluable in areas where madness buildup threatens to incapacitate you, such as locations infested with Three Fingers cultists. At 13 intelligence and 17 FP, it's accessible early enough to help with madness-focused enemies. You can purchase Lucidity from Thops at the Church of Irith in Liurnia. Thops' Barrier Spell. Deflection. Thops' Barrier creates a magical shield that deflects incoming spells back at enemies, turning their magic against them. This defensive sorcery becomes particularly powerful in encounters against magic-using foes, allowing you to survive magical assaults while punishing casters. At 16 intelligence and 16 FP, it's reasonably accessible. You obtain this sorcery by giving Thops a second glintstone key and later finding his corpse in the Raya Lucaria Academy. Starlight Illumination. Starlight creates a floating orb of light that hovers above you, illuminating dark areas for several minutes. This utility spell helps in navigating dungeons and catacombs where visibility is poor. While torches provide similar functionality, Starlight frees up a hand for two-handing weapons or using shields. At 11 intelligence and 10 FP, it's cheap enough to cast liberally. You can purchase Starlight from Thops or Selen early in the game. Unseen Form Invisibility. Unseen Form renders you partially invisible, making it much harder for enemies to detect you at range. This stealth utility spell allows for creative approaches to enemy encounters and can help you sneak past dangerous areas. At 16 intelligence and 30 FP, the cost is moderate for the utility it provides. You can find Unseen Form in Celia town of sorcery by looting a corpse after breaking the town's magical barriers. Unseen Blade Weapon Invisibility. Unseen Blade makes your right-hand weapon invisible to enemies, making it harder for them to read your attack patterns. This applies primarily in PvP, where opponents rely on seeing your weapon to time dodges and parries. At 12 intelligence and 14 FP, it's relatively cheap for the PvP advantage it provides. You can find Unseen Blade in Celia, town of sorcery, similarly to Unseen Form. Ranged Projectile Speed. Ranged extends the effective range of projectile sorceries, allowing them to travel farther before dissipating. This utility buff helps when fighting enemies at extreme distances or when trying to snipe targets from safety. At 13 intelligence and 14 FP, it's accessible early and useful in specific situations. You can find ranged in a chest in the Hermit Village in Mount Gelmir. Magma Shot Lava Projectile. Magma Shot fires a glob of molten magma that explodes on impact, dealing fire damage. This represents one of the few sorceries that deals fire damage rather than magic damage, allowing intelligence builds to access fire damage without investing in faith. At 19 intelligence and 15 FP, it serves as a mid-game option. You can purchase Magma Shot from Gowry after progressing his quest line, or from certain other merchants. Roiling Magma Spreading Lava. Roiling magma creates a pool of lava on the ground that spreads and damages enemies who stand in it. This area denial spell forces enemies to reposition or suffer continuous fire damage. At 30 intelligence and 21 FP, it's more expensive than Magma Shot, but offers better area control. You can find roiling magma in Mount Gelmir by exploring the volcanic regions. Gelmir's Fury Lava Eruption. Gelmir's Fury summons multiple eruptions of lava from the ground in a targeted area, creating a dangerous zone of fire damage. This spell excels at denying areas and damaging groups of enemies caught in the eruptions. At 42 intelligence and 36 FP, it's a late-game option that reflects the power of Mount Gelmir's volcanic forces. You can find this sorcery in Volcano Manor by exploring thoroughly. Rykard's Rancor Skulls of Flame. Rykard's Rancor fires a spread of flaming skulls that seek out enemies and explode on contact. This spell combines homing capabilities with fire damage, making it effective against enemies resistant to magic but vulnerable to flames. At 40 intelligence and 38 FP, it's a significant investment. You obtain this sorcery by trading Rykard's Remembrance at the Round Table Hold after defeating him. Nightshard Invisible Projectile. Nightshard functions similarly to Night Comet, but as a weaker, more efficient version. It fires an invisible projectile that enemies cannot detect, making it useful throughout the game for its stealth properties. At 18 Intelligence and 7 FP, it's accessible earlier than Night Comet and cheaper to cast. You can find Nightshard in Celia, Town of Sorcery, by looting a corpse. Night Maiden's Mist, Lingering Poison. Night Maiden's Mist creates a cloud of poisonous fog that lingers on the battlefield, continuously damaging any enemies who remain inside it. Unlike most sorceries, this spell scales with intelligence, but deals physical damage over time, rather than direct magic damage. At 14 intelligence and 28 FP, it offers area denial capabilities. You can find Night Maiden's Mist in Liurnia by thoroughly exploring the region. Ambush Shard Backstab. Spell. Ambush Shard creates a magical projectile that materializes behind the target and strikes them from an unexpected angle. This spell bypasses shields and allows you to damage enemies who are blocking. At 23 intelligence and 14 FP, it provides tactical options against defensive enemies. You can find Ambush Shard in the Weeping Peninsula by exploring thoroughly. Renna's Full Moon debuff. Renna's Full Moon serves as the companion spell to Ranni's Dark Moon, firing a massive full moon projectile that deals heavy damage and reduces enemy magic resistance. This legendary sorcery requires 70 intelligence and costs 55 FP, marking it as endgame content. The magic resistance debuff stacks with Ranni's Dark Moon, allowing both moons to enhance subsequent magical attacks. You obtain this spell from Renna's Rise after completing certain portions of Ranni's questline. Ancient Death Rancor Seeking Skulls. Ancient Death Rancor summons a swarm of vengeful spirits in the form of skulls that relentlessly pursue enemies. These spectral skulls track targets with good accuracy and can overwhelm enemies with their numbers. At 34 intelligence and 32 FP, it offers good value for the sustained assault it provides. You can find Ancient Death Rancor in the consecrated snowfield by exploring the frozen wasteland. Explosive Ghost Flame Death Magic. Explosive Ghost Flame creates a burst of black flame that deals death-based damage, one of the few sorceries that access this damage type. The explosion has good area coverage, and the death damage type bypasses certain resistances. At 45 intelligence and 42 FP, it's expensive but powerful. You can obtain Explosive Ghost Flame from the ancient Snow Valley ruin site. Tibia's Summon Skeleton Caller. Tibia's summons calls for 3 skeletal warriors that charge forward and explode on contact with enemies. This spell provides summons without using spirit ashes, allowing you to deploy skeletal troops while still having access to your spirit summons. At 28 intelligence and 31 FP, it offers unique utility. You can find Tibia's summons in the mountaintops of the giants. Rancorcal Spirit Swarm. Rancorcal summons a group of vengeful spirits that track and attack enemies, providing a swarm of seeking projectiles. Each spirit deals modest damage, but collectively they can overwhelm targets. At 18 intelligence and 16 FP, it's accessible mid-game. You can find Rancorcal in Liurnia by exploring the regions inhabited by those who live in death. Fia's Mist. Deathblight Cloud. Fia's Mist creates a cloud that builds up the Deathblight status on enemies who remain inside it. Deathblight instantly kills most enemies when the status bar fills, making this one of the most powerful crowd control options available. At 23 intelligence and 17 FP, it's reasonably accessible. You obtain this spell from Fia after progressing her questline and entering her dream. Briars of Sin Thorny Offense. Briars of Sin fires a burst of thorny projectiles that deal damage based on your incantation scaling. This represents one of the hybrid sorceries that requires both intelligence and faith investment. At 24 intelligence and 24 faith, it costs 20 FP. You can find Briars of Sin in the subterranean shunning grounds by exploring the sewers beneath Landell. Briars of Punishment. Defensive Thorns. Briars of Punishment creates a defensive burst of thorns around you when you take damage, automatically counter-attacking enemies who strike you in melee. This provides passive defense similar to the Iron Flesh spell. At 24 intelligence and 24 faith, it costs 27 FP. You can find Briars of Punishment near the Fire Giant's arena. Darkness Concealment Cloud. Darkness creates a cloud of obscuring fog around you, making it harder for enemies to see and target you. This utility spell helps create distance or hide from enemy sightlines. At 14 intelligence and 21 FP, it's accessible early. You can find darkness in the Altus Plateau by exploring. Miriam's Vanishing Movement Speed. Miriam's Vanishing causes you to phase out briefly while rolling, making you harder to hit during dodge animations. This defensive utility enhances your survivability by extending invincibility frames. At 18 intelligence and 15 FP, it provides good utility. You obtain this spell by defeating Preceptor Miriam in the Carian Study Hall. Assassin's Approach. Silent Movement. Assassin's Approach muffles your movement sounds, making it much harder for enemies to detect you approaching. This stealth utility spell helps with sneaking past enemies or setting up ambushes. At 10 intelligence and 17 FP, it's very accessible. You can purchase Assassin's Approach from Gary in his shack. Scholar's Shield. Magic Protection. Scholar's Shield creates a magical barrier that greatly increases your resistance to magic damage for a duration. This defensive buff becomes invaluable in encounters against magic-heavy enemies or bosses. At 12 intelligence and 30 FP, it's accessible early, but costs significant FP to maintain. You can find Scholar's Shield in Leonia by exploring. Scholar's Armament Magic Weapon. Scholar's Armament enchants your right-hand weapon with magic damage, allowing physical weapons to benefit from your intelligence scaling. This buff makes hybrid builds viable by letting you use regular weapons that scale with your casting stat. At 12 intelligence and 25 FP, it's accessible early. You can purchase Scholar's Armament from Sorcerer Rogier at the Round Table Hold. Frozen Armament Frost Weapon. Frozen Armament enchants your weapon with frost, allowing it to build up cold status on enemies with each hit. Once enough hits land, the target suffers frostbite, taking burst damage and increased damage from all sources. At 15 intelligence and 25 FP, it provides good utility. You can find Frozen Armament in Leonia by exploring. Magic Downpour, Rain of Glintstone. Magic Downpour creates a localized storm of falling glintstone projectiles, raining magic damage on the area beneath it. This creates area denial and crowd control, similar to Founding Rain of Stars. At 38 intelligence and 30 FP, it's a late game option. You can find Magic Downpour in the consecrated snowfield area. Cannon of Heimer Charged Beam. Cannon of Heimer fires a powerful concentrated beam of magical energy after a charging period. The beam deals heavy damage and poise damage, capable of breaking enemy posture. At 37 intelligence and 28 FP, it provides good single target damage. You can find Cannon of Heimer in the Hermit Village in Mount Gelmir. Gavel of Heimer Magic Hammer. Gavel of Heimer conjures a massive magical hammer and slams it down, dealing tremendous damage and poise damage in a small area. This spell functions as magical artillery. devastating anything caught in the impact zone. At 37 intelligence and 18 FP, it offers good damage for the cost. You can find Gavel of Heimer in the village of the Albinaurics. Glintstone Icecrag charged version. When you charge Glintstone Icecrag, it fires a larger, more powerful frost projectile that deals increased damage and cold buildup. The charged version makes it even more effective at triggering frostbite status. The additional cold buildup means fewer casts needed to proc the status effect. Terra Magica Duration Extension. Terra Magica's 30-second duration can be extended through careful timing of spell casts. By casting your most powerful sorceries at the end of the duration, you maximize the benefit from the damage boost. Strategic use of Terra Magica involves setting it up before boss phases, where you can remain stationary. Carrion Regal Scepter. Scaling. The Carrion Regal Scepter provides the highest sorcery scaling of any staff at maximum upgrade and high intelligence. This makes it the best general use staff for pure mage builds at endgame stat levels. You obtain it by trading Renala's Remembrance after defeating her at the Raya Lucaria Academy. Lusat's Glintstone Staff Power. Lusat's Glintstone Staff boosts all sorcery damage by 10%, but increases FP consumption by 15%. This trade-off makes it ideal for burst damage scenarios where you want maximum impact. You find this staff with Master Lusat in Celia Hideaway. Azur's Glintstone Staff Speed. Azur's Glintstone Staff reduces casting time for all sorceries, allowing you to fire spells faster. This speed boost becomes invaluable for maintaining offensive pressure and getting casts off between enemy attacks. You obtain it from primeval sorcerer Azur in Mount Gelmir. Staff of Loss Night Boost. The Staff of Loss increases the damage of night sorceries by 30%, making spells like Night Comet even more powerful. Dual-wielding 2 Staffs of Loss stacks this bonus, creating the ultimate night sorcery setup. You can find this staff in Celia, Town of Sorcery. Meteorite Staff. Early game. The Meteorite Staff cannot be upgraded, but starts with high sorcery scaling, making it the best staff for early game mages. It also boosts gravity sorceries, making Rock Sling even more effective. You can find it in the Kalid Swamp without fighting any bosses. Prince of Death Staff. Hybrid. The Prince of Death Staff scales with both intelligence and faith, making it the best catalyst for hybrid casters using both sorceries and death sorceries. At maximum upgrade with high intelligence and faith, it achieves the highest scaling in the game. You can find it in the Deeproot Depths. Carrion Glintstone Staff. Carrion Boost. The Carrion Glintstone Staff increases the damage of Carrion sorceries by 15%, making spells like Carrion Slicer and Magic Glint Blade more powerful. This makes it the ideal staff for battle mages focusing on Carrion magic. You can find it in the Raya Lucaria Academy. Gelmir Glintstone Staff Magma Boost. The Gelmir Glintstone Staff boosts magma sorceries, making spells like Magma Shot and the Gelmir's Fury more effective. This specialized staff caters to players who want to use magma sorceries extensively. You can find it in Volcano Manor. Albinauric Staff. Arcane Scaling. The Albinauric Staff uniquely scales with Arcane instead of Intelligence, allowing Arcane builds to cast sorceries effectively. This opens up unusual build possibilities that combine arcane weapons with magical casting. You can find it in Liurnia, in the village of the Albinaurics. Crystal Staff Crystallian Boost. The Crystal Staff increases the damage of crystal-based sorceries like Crystal Barrage and Crystal Torrent. This specialized staff caters to players focusing on crystal magic. You can find it by defeating the Putrid Crystallian Trio, Carrion Glintblade Staff Glintblade Boost. The Carrion Glintblade Staff specifically boosts Magic Glintblade and Glintblade Phalanx, making delayed Glintblade strategies more effective. This staff enables a unique playstyle built around timing delayed projectiles. You can purchase it from Pidia in the Carrion Manor. Academy Glintstone Staff Basic Scaling. The Academy Glintstone Staff provides standard sorcery scaling without any special bonuses or penalties. This makes it a reliable general use staff before you acquire more specialized options. You can find it in the Raya Lucaria Academy. Demi-Human Queen's Staff. Faith Hybrid. The Demi-Human Queen Staff scales primarily with intelligence, but receives a small faith scaling bonus. This makes it useful for low-level hybrid builds. You can find it by defeating demi-human queens in various locations. Digger's Staff Strength Hybrid. The Digger's Staff scales with both intelligence and strength, allowing battle mages to benefit from strength investment. This unusual scaling makes it valuable for melee magic hybrid builds. You can find it in the Raya Lucaria Crystal Tunnel. Glintstone Staff Starting Equipment. The Glintstone Staff serves as the basic starting catalyst for the Astrologer class. While it becomes outclassed by better options, it remains serviceable throughout the early game. You start with it, or can purchase it from merchants. Comet Azure FP Consumption. Comet Azure consumes 45 FP per second while channeling, making it one of the most FP-hungry spells in the game. The Cerulean Hidden Tear becomes essential for using it effectively, providing 10 seconds of unlimited FP. Magic Scorpion Charm Boost. The Magic Scorpion Charm increases magic damage by 12%, but also increases damage taken. This trade-off makes it powerful for glass cannon builds that prioritize offense over defense. You obtain it from Preceptor Seluvis's questline. Graven Mass Talisman Stack. The Graven Mass Talisman increases sorcery damage by 8% and stacks with the Magic Scorpion Charm. Combining these talismans with Terra Magica creates devastating damage multipliers. You can find it in the Consecrated Snowfield. Graven School Talisman Lesser Boost. The Graven School Talisman increases sorcery damage by 4%, serving as a weaker version of the Graven Mass Talisman. It's useful early before you acquire the superior version. You can find it in the Raya Lucaria Academy. Radagon Icon Cast Speed. The Radagon icon increases casting speed, allowing you to fire spells faster. This becomes valuable for maintaining offensive pressure and reducing vulnerability during casting animations. You obtain it from a chest in Raya Lucaria Academy. Moon of Noxtella Memory Slots. The Moon of Noxtella Talisman increases memory slots by 2, allowing you to equip more spells simultaneously. This expansion gives pure mages access to a wider variety of spells. You can find it in an underground treasure room. Godfrey Icon Charge Spells. The Godfrey Icon increases the damage of charged sorceries and incantations by 15%. This makes charging spells more rewarding and encourages strategic use of charged attacks. You obtain it from Godfrey's questline reward. Primal Glintstone Blade FP Cost. The Primal Glintstone Blade reduces spell FP costs, but lowers maximum HP. This trade-off benefits pure mages who prioritize casting efficiency over survivability. You can find it in the Raya Lucaria Academy. Cerulean Amber Medallion FP Pool. The Cerulean Amber Medallion increases maximum FP, giving you a larger resource pool for casting spells. The +2 version provides the maximum benefit. You can find different versions throughout the game. Magic Shrouding Cracked. Tear Physic. The magic shrouding crack tear increases magic damage by 20% for 3 minutes when mixed into your wondrous physic. This provides a significant temporary damage boost for difficult encounters. You obtain it from the Erdtree avatar in Leonia. Intelligence Knot, Crystal Tear stats. The Intelligence Knot. Crystal Tear increases intelligence by 10 for 3 minutes when mixed into your wondrous physic. This temporary boost allows you to cast spells above your normal intelligence level. You obtain it from the Erdtree avatar in the consecrated snowfield. Cerulean Hidden Tear Unlimited. FP. The Cerulean Hidden Tear eliminates all FP consumption for 10 seconds when mixed into your wondrous physic. This enables devastating combos like Infinite Comet Azure channeling. You obtain it from the Ulcerated Tree Spirit in Mount Gelmir. Magic Damage Negation. Talismans. The Spelldrake Talisman reduces magic damage taken, with the +2 version providing the maximum protection. This defensive option helps survive magic-heavy encounters. You can find different versions throughout the game. Marika's Soreseal Intelligence Boost. Marika's Soreseal increases intelligence, mind, faith, and arcane by 5 each, but increases all damage taken. This provides a significant stat boost for hybrid casters at the cost of increased vulnerability. You can find it in the Haligtree. Stargazer Heirloom Intelligence. 5. The Stargazer Heirloom increases intelligence by 5, allowing you to meet spell requirements or boost scaling earlier. This straightforward talisman benefits all intelligence builds. You can find it by defeating a boss in Mount Gelmir. 2 Fingers. Heirloom Faith. 5. The 2 Fingers. Heirloom increases faith by 5, helping hybrid builds that use both intelligence and faith. You obtain it from a corpse in the Forbidden Lands. Marika's Scarseal 4 stats. Marika's Scarseal increases intelligence, mind, faith, and arcane by 3 each, but increases damage taken by 15%. This provides a smaller boost than the Soreseal, but at a more manageable penalty. You find it in Siofra River. Incantations Basics. Faith Scaling. Incantations represent the faith-based magic system in Elden Ring, requiring sacred seals to cast instead of staves. While sorceries focus primarily on offensive magic, incantations include healing, buffs, weapon enchantments, and diverse elemental damage. This broader utility makes faith builds more versatile than pure intelligence builds. Sacred seal types. Variety. Over a dozen different sacred seals exist in Elden Ring, each with unique scaling properties and bonuses. Some boost specific types of incantations, while others scale with unusual stat combinations. This variety allows for highly specialized faith builds tailored to specific playstyles. Erdtree Seal. Best Scaling. The Erdtree Seal provides the highest incantation scaling at maximum upgrade when you have high faith investment. This makes it the best general use seal for pure faith builds at endgame levels. You can purchase it from the Twin Maiden Husks at Roundtable Hold. Godslayer's Seal Black Flame. The Godslayer's Seal increases the damage of Black Flame incantations, making spells like Black Flame and Black Flame Ritual more powerful. This specialized seal caters to builds focusing on Godslayer magic. You can find it in Stormvale Castle. Golden Order Seal Hybrid. The Golden Order Seal scales with both intelligence and faith, making it ideal for hybrid casters using Golden Order incantations. At high intelligence and faith, it can match or exceed the Erdtree Seal scaling. You can find it in the Forbidden Lands. Gravel Stone Seal Lightning. The Gravel Stone Seal boosts Dragon Cult lightning incantations, making spells like Lightning Spear and Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike more effective. This specialization rewards focused lightning builds. You can find it in Lanedale Royal Capital. Clawmark Seal, Bestial Strength. The Clawmark Seal uniquely scales with both faith and strength, allowing strength-faith hybrid builds to benefit from both stats. It also boosts bestial incantations received from Gurranq. You obtain it from Gurranq in the Bestial Sanctum. Dragon Communion Seal Arcane. The Dragon Communion Seal scales with both faith and arcane, making it perfect for dragon incantations and blood-focused builds. This unique scaling opens up unusual build possibilities. You can find it in the Fringefolk Hero's Grave. Frenzied Flame Seal Madness. The Frenzied Flame Seal boosts Frenzied Flame incantations and scales with faith, strength, and dexterity. This makes it valuable for hybrid builds using madness-based magic. You obtain it in the Subterranean Shunning Grounds. Giant's Seal Fire Giant. The Giant Seal boosts Fire Giant incantations, making fire-based spells more powerful. This specialized seal caters to Pyromancer-style builds. You can find it near the Flame Peak. Flame Grant, me strength. Buff. Flame Grant me strength. Provides a 20% boost to both physical and fire damage for 30 seconds. This powerful buff benefits any build dealing physical or fire damage, making it one of the most universally useful incantations. You can find it behind Fort Gale in Caelid, requiring only 15 faith to cast. Golden Vow Attack. Defense. Golden Vow increases attack power and defense for you and nearby allies for 80 seconds. This buff proves invaluable for difficult boss encounters, providing both offensive and defensive benefits. You can find it in the Corpse Stench Shack in the Altus Plateau, requiring 25 faith to cast. Blessings Boon Health. Regeneration. Blessings Boon provides continuous health regeneration for 70 seconds, slowly healing you over time. This lets you recover health passively while exploring or between combat encounters. You can purchase it from Brother Corin at the Round Table Hold for only 12 faith. Lightning Spear, ranged. Lightning. Lightning Spear throws a bolt of lightning at enemies, dealing lightning damage and good poise damage. This serves as the basic ranged attack for faith builds, filling the role that Glintstone Pebble plays for sorcerers. You can purchase it from Brother Corin for 17 faith and 18 FP. Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike. Devastation. Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike summons a massive lightning spear from the sky that deals tremendous damage and poise damage in a large area. This represents one of the most powerful offensive incantations available. You obtain it from the Ancient Dragon Prayer Book, requiring 32 faith and 35 FP. Black Flame Percentage Health. Black Flame throws a projectile of black fire that deals damage based on a percentage of the target's maximum health. This makes it exceptionally effective against bosses and enemies with large health pools. You can find it in the Godskin Prayer Book, requiring 20 faith and 17 FP. Swarm of Flies Blood Build. Swarm of Flies summons insects that build up blood loss on enemies extremely quickly. This incantation can proc hemorrhage in just a few casts, dealing massive burst damage. You can find it north of the Palace Approach Ledge Road, requiring 11 faith and 16 arcane. Bloodflame Blade Hemorrhage. Weapon. Bloodflame Blade enchants your weapon with Blood Flame, causing each hit to build up hemorrhage on enemies. Once enough hits land, the target suffers massive blood loss damage. You can find it dropped by a Teardrop Scarab near the Rose Church, requiring 12 faith and 10 arcane. Pest Threads. Multi-hit. Pest Threads fires spectral threads that can hit large enemies multiple times as they pass through their bodies. Against massive bosses, this spell can deal its damage several times over. multiplying its effectiveness. You can find it in the abandoned cave in Caelid, requiring 11 faith and 18 FP. Dragonfire Breath Cone. Dragonfire allows you to breathe fire like a dragon, covering a cone-shaped area in flames. This Dragon Communion spell requires dragon hearts to learn and scales with both faith and arcane. You can purchase it at the Church of Dragon Communion for 15 faith and 12 arcane. Placidus Axe's Ruin Laser Beam. Placidus Axe's Ruin unleashes devastating laser beams from your body, mimicking the Dragon Lord's signature attack. This incantation deals tremendous damage, but leaves you vulnerable during the long animation. You obtain it from Placidus Axe's Remembrance, requiring 36 faith. Grail's Roar Massive debuff. Grail's Roar releases a powerful dragon roar that reduces enemy attack power and defense in a large area. This debuff makes difficult encounters more manageable by weakening all affected enemies. You obtain it from Grail's Remembrance after defeating the massive Dragon Mother. Beastclaw Stone Projectiles. Beastclaw throws a series of stone projectiles at enemies, dealing physical damage that scales with faith. This bestial incantation provides faith builds with physical damage options. You receive it from Gurranq after giving him Deathroot. Stone of Gurranq Gravity Slam. Stone of Gurranq creates a gravity effect before slamming a stone down, dealing heavy damage and poise damage. This bestial spell provides strong single target damage. You obtain it from Gurranq's questline, requiring 13 faith. Rejection Crowd Control. Rejection creates a shockwave that pushes enemies away and knocks down weaker foes. While it deals minimal damage, the crowd control utility makes it valuable for creating space. You can purchase it from Brother Corin for 12 faith. Assassin's Approach. Silent Steps. Assassin's Approach silences your movement, making it much harder for enemies to detect you. This stealth utility helps with sneaking past dangerous areas or setting up ambushes. You can purchase it from Gari for 10 faith. Law of Regression Secret Reveal. Law of Regression dispels all buffs and illusions in the area. Most famously, it reveals the secret message in Leyndell that explains Radagon and Marika are the same being. You need 37 intelligence to cast this faith spell. Urgent Heal. Emergency Recovery. Urgent Heal provides instant healing, recovering a moderate amount of health immediately. This emergency heal can save you from lethal damage in desperate situations. You can purchase it from Brother Corin for 12 faith. Heal Group Healing. Heal provides substantial healing to you and nearby allies, making it valuable for cooperative play. The healing scales with your Seal's incantation scaling. You can purchase it from Brother Corin for 15 faith. Elden Stars Seeking Stars. Elden Stars summons a stream of golden projectiles that track and attack enemies for an extended duration. This legendary incantation requires 50 faith and deals holy damage over time. You obtain it from Leyndell Royal Capital. Scarlet Aeonia Rot. Explosion. Scarlet Aeonia creates a massive explosion of scarlet rot, dealing heavy damage and building up rot status. This mimics Millennia's signature bloom attack. You obtain it from her remembrance, requiring 35 faith. All magic in Elden Ring exists as part of a carefully balanced system, where no single spell dominates all situations. The variety of catalysts, talismans, buffs, and spell types allows for countless combinations and strategies. Whether you prefer the precise projectiles of glintstone sorceries, the versatile utility of incantations, the devastating power of legendary spells, or the unique properties of specialized magic schools, The Lands Between offers magical options to suit any playstyle. The magic system rewards experimentation and adaptation, encouraging players to discover which spells work best for their preferred approach to combat. Some mages focus on pure damage output, stacking every possible buff to achieve astronomical numbers. Others prioritize efficiency, using low-cost spells repeatedly to maintain constant pressure. Still others embrace versatility, carrying a wide array of spells to handle any situation. Understanding these 135 magical facts opens up new possibilities for your journey through the Lands Between. You now know which spells provide the best value, which catalysts boost your preferred magic schools, which buffs stack to create powerful combinations, and which hidden mechanics can give you advantages in difficult encounters. This knowledge transforms magic from a simple damage dealer into a nuanced and strategic aspect of combat. Thank you for journeying with me tonight, Cozy Nights. If this story helped you rest, consider leaving a like. It helps other weary travelers find their way to our fireside. And remember, there are many more tales waiting for you here by the fire. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure. Until next time, sleep peacefully and have a cozy night.